So, welcome everyone to another episode of Anita Das podcast, your invitation to explore topics related to holistic healing, therapies, spirituality, and transformation, and so much more. I'm so incredibly excited and honoured to welcome Maia Francis for today's episode on demystifying, channeling, frequency alchemy, and the new earth energetics. So, I'll just give a short introduction. So, Maia Francis is a quantum channel. She works with a collective cosmic consciousness to help individuals as well as organizations access this new earth energy grid, which we'll talk about. This new energy grid supplies updated codes required for our next stage consciousness expansion. So, as well as bringing through these energetic activations and channeled wisdom, Maya teaches channeling and light language and is a mentor to many who are exploring the new frequencies and the impact on their human lives. So, welcome, Maya. So fantastic to have you with me today.
Oh, it's really lovely to be here, Anita. You and I have worked together for a little while, and it's really beautiful to continue this connection. And I know your community is beautiful and strong and inquisitive and curious. So I think this will bring a lot of things to ponder about for them.
Fantastic. If we could start perhaps with just you sharing with our audience today, just how you started on this journey with channeling or frequency alchemy and how you knew that this was your path.
Yes, okay, the $64 million question. As is the case for most people, it wasn't really a planned activity or unfolding. It wasn't in any way a planned activity or unfolding. And in fact, in the early stages, I was quite reticent to accept this particular pathway for myself. So I think that's sort of worth saying, because for a lot of people, some people are really eager to be able to channel, to be able to bring through the information, wisdom, guidance, or codes. For me, it happened, I suspect, or I know that it is part of my soul mission, and it happened in a very unceremonious way for me. I was, as most people do, I say most people, but I'm sure there's a big chunk of people that don't go through a difficult patch of where they find themselves leaning into exploring what many people might say a sort of a spiritual awakening. Some people just go much more smoothly, but there are many of us that go through personal, we might even call it traumatic times, personal difficulty, personal struggles or challenges that bring us to a place where there's no alternative, there's no other pathway but to really explore our sense of connection with what is beyond the human experience. So that happened for me. I had a very difficult personal period in 2017, 2018. And it was really tough. And I was seeking a lot of support in a traditional sort of mainstream sort of way. And a lot of people were recommending I try to meditate. At this point, I wasn't connected in any way. I would have described myself as an atheist, in that I felt that my job was to live a really full and rich life and to be kind and loving and respectful. But actually, at the end of this physical experience, that was probably all there was. I was brought up a Catholic, but had problems with that institution from a relatively early time, and then nothing else felt like it synced up for me from either a spiritual or a religious perspective. So when I was going through this really tough time and I began to try to learn to meditate, it was really hard. You hear a lot of people saying, I can't meditate. I so understand that. Like a 2-minute meditation of focusing on one spot was just excruciating for me. But I did learn some protocols. And so even though it felt very difficult for me, I pushed on, and I used to always feel a little bit better, not massively better, but a little bit better. And so during one of these periods I would lie down when I would meditate, and it was just easier for me. But during one of these moments of meditating, I found myself consumed by an energy that was not my own energy. And I hasten to say that it wasn't a nefarious energy. It did not feel like an evil or a difficult or a negative energy, but it was something that was not part of my human experience. it created movement in my body. My head began, I can only say swiveling. It sounds a little bit like poltergeist. It wasn't doing a 360, but it was doing a 180 from side to side at a ferocious pace. So it was such a pace that there was no way my human body was creating that movement. So that was the beginning of when I realized it was quite dramatic. A lot of people have very gentle and subtle connections to their broader energetic self. That was fairly dramatic. And I guess it's because I did have that atheistic background and I was skeptical and cynical. And so that would have been what I needed to really bring me into that space. So I'm going to pause there, Anita, because I'm rambling a little bit, and maybe you can ask any pertinent follow-up sort of questions.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic to give it that level of detail. And I just want to say, for anyone who's watching, they're drawn to this, myself and Maia, both channels, maybe you're finding it a bit difficult to meditate, but you feel it really resonates with your heart. This has happened for us gradually. It's good to maybe just stick with it and see what transpires. Okay. I ask, for those viewers that are watching today, perhaps they're new to all these terms like channeling, the alchemy. Could you maybe explain what channeling frequency alchemy means and what happens when you channel? Just in a few sentences, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I believe everyone can channel. So everyone can, if they open themselves and have an intention to be able to do, can connect to energies beyond the confinement of our physicality, and that those energies can help us, can guide us in many instances, can empower us. I think that's one of the most beautiful things that the energies that we work with do. They empower us to be able to, as humans, make decisions that are in sync with that, feel into that, the information and the data that's in the field, that allows us to make decisions that are more helpful for us, that can understand and manage what are the drivers at a human level. So what is it that we are responding to that's sort of programmed into us, and what is it that's available to us, perspectives, guidance, understanding at a broader level, an energetic level. So channeling is really just opening what is an energetic vessel, an energetic flow, opening that to resonance and input from the field, the energetic field that's around us, and everyone can do that. Some people are interested and are able to, and perhaps it's part of their soul mission, to actually articulate, to be able to speak in English to reflect the intention of many of the energetic beings or the currents that are supporting humanity at this stage. But everyone, channeling takes many different forms, and everyone has the capacity to be able to receive guidance and wisdom and input. So that's what I would say channeling is. It's really elevating your frequency to a point where you're resonating with those other high frequency energies, and you can sync up with that. Frequency is probably, it's another one of those terms that's been bandied about a lot, but the way I understand it, the way that's come through to myself, is that in fact everything that we experience is frequency. Frequency is it's a flow of energy, energetic state. And so we often say, we describe as a mood or a feeling or an experience. We describe that as a feeling, and actually if you burrow into it, it's actually a frequency point, and that is the movement of wave and particle at a scientific level. That's what it really is, and the rapidity with which that wave moves really then defines the characteristics of that frequency. But from a really practical perspective, frequency is that feeling that we hold in our body. If we've got a denser frequency, it will feel very heavy, very loaded. If we've got a higher frequency, one that's more in line with a sense of liberation or freedom or happiness or joy, it feels higher and it feels lighter. And so that, again, when you think about it, the lightness, when you feel that lightness, you feel that the energy is lighter and it's moving more quickly. So I feel like frequency is really the language that we're moving into. We're moving away from the broadness of just energies, and we're getting into the specificity of frequencies. And that's where we can really play with and manipulate really the experience that we have by playing with, deliberately and intentionally playing with different frequencies.
Absolutely. So I just want to mention that there are different forms of channeling, as Maia mentioned. So, for example, it could be through kind of voice channeling where it's coming verbally. It could be through your written word where you're writing and channeling, or it could be through movements of the hands. People can experience it in different ways, or they can experience more than one. That's something that some people may have come across. I guess it's leading to my next question, which is a combination. One, that have you come across that where you're using both types of channeling together? And the second question is, many of our viewers may have heard of the term light language or language of the soul. Lots of people, it's becoming increasingly popular. Are you able to just touch upon the different forms of channeling and also the terminology of light language, what this means?
Yes, yeah, of course. I think each of us is, in a sense, naturally inclined towards one or another different modalities, I guess you'd call it, for want of a better word, ways of processing the energy. So it's probably not modalities, but different ways of processing energy. And some of us feel much more comfortable and confident. And many people, and I'm sure your audience is familiar with this term, but many people are clairsentient, where they won't be verbalizing what's coming through, but they have the most incredible innate understanding of the specifics of what is coming through for them. And perhaps they receive knowledge that there's no way they could possibly have sourced in our 3D sort of physical way. So there are many different ways. There's the clairaudience, which is hearing different or processing the energy in a way that they can hear. For me, there's a whole raft of different ways that we might actually, what we're doing is we're the receptacle, we're the antenna, and we're processing the frequencies that come through in a way that best suits our bodies. For me, what best suits my body, or the way that I am designed to assist at this time, is really through moving my consciousness out of my physical body. I'm still here, I'm still very much aware of what's going on, but allowing the broader energies, the higher frequency energies, to come through and use the vernacular, the vocabulary that's in my brain in a way, and then the vocal cords to be able to communicate in English in the way that people would understand that to be. But many people have profound insights come through automatic writing or many other different styles of channeling energy. I work primarily with spoken. I'm not a trance channel. Trance channeling is when you absolutely in totality move your consciousness you relocate your consciousness. So you really are an empty vessel. My channeling, and many people, it's more common these days to do a direct verbal channel, which is you're still consciously aware, you're connected to your physicality, but you are allowing that energy to come through and to use your physical form. I do that, and I do light language. Good that you've touched on that. When I say I do light language, that's really incorrect, actually. I express the energies that come through. I don't express them, but they come through me as often as sounds and tones. And the difference between channeling in English and channeling in light language is that you're bypassing the whole circuitry of our human form to get to a different level and depth of understanding of what's actually happening. So it's not working with the cognitive brain, it's working entirely and purely energetically. So it's working with your field, it's working with the codes that exist within your field. And quite often, if you connect with a light language speaker or a light language channel, you'll be receiving the codes that have uniquely come through them, that are the codes that you need for either healing or progression or shifting blockages. And it's a hard thing for our human brains to really understand, but it's a very powerful way of really shifting your experience. Again, it's just something that it's not cognitive. It's not something that you could understand, necessarily replicate. When I channel light language, I don't know when it's going to start. I don't know when it's going to end. And that's for me a great sign that I'm out of the way, because when I'm speaking this sentence, and I know at the end of these words, there'll be an end of that sentence. And I'm aware of that. I'm 1 or 2 steps ahead as we speak. But when you're channeling light language, it's coming through you in the precise now moment. So you really don't know when it's going to end. So for me, again, that's a lovely indicator that it's not me doing it, my human doing it. So yes, light language, I think many people have asked whether it is the same as speaking in tongues. I think in my experience, it's an evolution of that. And it's speaking in tongues without the constructed religious structure that supports that, and it's a more ecumenical, I guess you might say, form of channeling energy that works within the field of energy. I hope that's a question, Anita.
That's fantastic. I guess from my personal experience, and I think other channels may have experienced this also, there is a certain level of, I would say, trust and surrender into the unknown to allow the unfolding of what the energy coming through, acknowledging that it's a loving presence coming through, and feel it can just happen for some people spontaneously, others it's different in different ways for each person. So there isn't any kind of specific, I guess there may be guidelines in opening up your energy and being willing, giving your consent and permission to try this form of channeling, and people may be drawn to it for a reason. You touched upon consciousness, just to ensure that people have the correct understanding. What do you mean by consciousness itself?
So when I was referring to it then, I was speaking about shifting my consciousness outside of my human form. So that is, for me, the way I understand it, it is the energetic makeup of who I am in this moment. So that's my current consciousness. And when I shift that out, then I'm left with the vessel. And now, obviously, there's a really immediate connection to the vessel. And so my consciousness, which is that essence of self, can very easily come back and repossess, so to speak, my body. But we talk about consciousness, so that's what I would regard as my consciousness. When I'm working with the collective cosmic consciousness, that is a broader body of threads of conscious intention, I guess you'd say, that have amalgamated together to work with many of us to bring through sort of significant shifts for humanity. My understanding of my belief, and everyone is really different, but my belief is that almost everything has a consciousness. Gaia has a consciousness, trees have consciousness, that animals have consciousness. So it's I guess the most precise and simple way of looking at it is it's the essence of you that's not confined to the physical barriers or parameters that are surrounding it.
Oh, that's lovely. That's such a wonderful kind of perspective, just opening ourselves up to the flow of energy, to these words, and not understanding it sometimes on a conscious level, on a subconscious, we are opening ourselves up to the energy, so things are shifting. So you touched on the collective cosmic consciousness. Can you tell us a bit more about how you became the channel for the collective cosmic consciousness, how this was initiated? And they first identified themselves as Stephen and then later the Elohim, and a bit more about their role.
Yeah, sure. Just following on from the beginning, my little introduction to experiencing these energies. And I'd really like to reflect your point, Anita, which is that this happened in a very slow way, in a way that took a lot of time, in a way that encouraged and facilitated my level of comfort with it. So none of this was bam, and I was blown out of the water. At each step, I had a human choice and decision to continue. It was my choice. I just want to reassure people that it's very uncommon in my experience that if you feel that you are sovereign over your energy, we are sovereign over our energy, and that we can guide this over a period of time. And I won't go into all of the details because it'll take too long, but really I came to a point where I was more comfortable with working with these energies. And actually I say these energies, but in the early stage, it was really very much my own, what many people would regard as your own higher self, that energy that was guiding me and helping me make decisions. And then I did have a brief period where I was contacted a lot by what I would call earthbound spirits, or energies that were floating around the earth, and they were asking me to pass on messages and things. But it was clear this wasn't really it's of most benefit to most people for me to continue to do. I then was approached as I was meditating on a flight from Melbourne to London. So it was a very long flight, and I was feeling really happy that I was going to be able to occupy myself with meditating and perhaps collapse time, and it would all move very smoothly. And as I was meditating, at this point, if I was to receive anything for myself, I would receive it in a way that my head would spell the words. So it would look a little bit, this is me, but it would look a little bit like this, hello. And so the reason for that is that I didn't know what that word was going to be. So hello could also be help, or any other sort of word that started with HEL. And the reason for that really is that to give me confidence that I wasn't making this up, that this wasn't my conscious human that was projecting that, because I didn't know what the end of that sentence was going to be. This happened, and the energy that I now know to be Stephen came through and spelt out in my head as I was sitting on the aircraft, would you speak for us? And I was quite shocked, and I said, not as shocked as I was when in the early stages, but I said, it really depends. Are you the good guys? And they said to me, how does it make you feel? And I could only feel this overwhelming energy of love. It was just a rich, deep, potent, powerful feeling of love, and I couldn't contest that. And so that felt very visceral to me. And so then I said to them, if I do choose to speak for you, what do you want to be called? And they spelt out Stephen, Steven, very precise spelling. And I was shocked, and I said, what do you mean Stephen? It's just such an ordinary lame name. What is that about? It's not a circle of anything. It's not a council of anything. It's not a gathering or a consciousness. It's just Stephen. Then they said, oh, we want to be normal, as if any of this is normal. Quite amusing. And you know them, Anita, they're very playful, and having worked with them for a little bit now, they have these amusing moments. But I only bring that up because then when I landed, a friend said to me, have you checked the etymology of the word Stephen? And when I looked it up in the dictionary, one of the definitions is a group of voices. And again, it goes to their playfulness, I could just imagine, they're clearly not humans, but I could imagine them just giggling away at watching my process of trying to connect all the dots up. So they are a group of voices. But as I say, I regard them more as threads of energy that vary. Actually, I think the makeup of them varies depending on the work that we're doing, and it comes together as an overarching body, this collective cosmic consciousness. And then you're quite right, after a couple of years, they brought into our awareness that we were actually working with the Elohim. And this is a body of, and I should go back and say the reason that it took so long to really identify for them to identify that they are the Elohim, or configuration of the Elohim, is because, of course, I was only just very incrementally, very cautiously accepting each of these little challenges, these little invitations. And had they said to me, we are the Elohim, it would have felt too daunting for me. I absolutely would not have gone down the path of, how do you say to someone, I am channeling the Elohim, at that stage when I was a little less confident about my channeling ability. It felt very overwhelming and very daunting. So Stephen was the guy next door, we want to be normal, that sort of thing, with a little planted message that they are a group of voices. So that's really how that name came about. The Elohim, my understanding, is a body of energies that are assisting in the architectural unfolding of the energetics of to do with the universe in a broadest sense, but the way we're working with them is the architecture is specifically related to Gaia and the earth and humanity in this moment, and that's the context for them working with us.
Fantastic, yeah. So it's really been a kind of a gradual unfolding for you, getting comfortable with working with them, and then them revealing them more of themselves to you.
Yes.
And yeah, perfect.
Yes.
So can you share, because I know we've used the terminology, the New Earth Grid, so can you share what that is and what it means to be plugged into this New Earth Grid, how it affects our consciousness, and also my question after this was to explain a bit more about your work with the golden diamond light grid of divinity as well, because it's on this related to the New Earth grid.
Yeah, so specifically, Stephen, a couple of years ago, probably better to start in that place, but a couple of years ago, I was working with a group that Anita is part of. It's a small group of quite adept energy workers, and it came through at that time that there was an opportunity for us to connect into a different energy grid. So the audience, you're probably all familiar with the fact that people refer to the 3D matrix grid that we are connected to, and this is an energetic source, a source of energy. So there is within that 3D energetic grid, and I imagine the grid to be a physical grid. It's an energetic grid, but I imagine it, and when I think about it, it's a grid around the earth, and that we are drawing energy from that grid. And this is the way that it's been described to me by Stephen, by the Elohim, is that each of us, all sentient beings, we are supplied from an energy perspective. We're supplied, there's a biological process that creates our ability to be able to move around in the world and to be active, but that each of us actually also has a supply into an energetic grid. And if we weren't supplied by an energetic grid, there would be nothing in terms of the fuel that would support us to continue our existence. So for eons, the only option has been to be connected into the 3D matrix grid, and the way that's been described to me is that that grid holds the whole gamut of frequencies, all of the denser frequencies and all of the higher frequencies, and that everything we experience both individually and as a collective, so that is your individual experience of joyful connection with family or loved ones, of all the different experiences that you might have had of sorrow and grief and trauma, all of that. No energy it doesn't just go nowhere. That energy is fed into this grid, and then we draw down from this grid. And from a collective point of view, all of the wars and the poverty and the famine and all of the archetypal traumatic experiences that humanity has had over our evolution, that energy is stored within that grid, as well as all of the more uplifting moments of freedom and liberation and exploration and curiosity. But that grid really holds that full gamut of all of those, the different frequencies, the different densities. And that's really all we've had to work with. So there are probably many people that connect in with you, Anita, or that are watching this or listening to this, that have had an experience where you might feel that you're energetically, you're feeling something that you feel it doesn't originate with you. You feel there's a heaviness or a density or a depth to your experience. You're resonating with an energy that isn't, when you think about what's going on in your life and you feel pretty good, but you're actually holding this energy that feels very heavy. It's quite likely that what you're doing is you're resonating with the collective energies, and that is really resonating again with that 3D matrix grid of the collective energies that are housed within that grid. And so that's really all we've had an opportunity to work with up until more recent times. And as I say, more recently, there has been an opportunity for us, and this is an opportunity and an invitation for our broader collective to really disconnect from that 3D matrix grid and connect into a higher frequency, just a more dominantly higher frequency grid that then allows us to not resonate so much with what's happening at the collective level, and by which I don't mean to have no empathy or no compassion or no sympathy for what is being experienced by many people, but to not resonate with that in a way that brings that energetic quality into our experience, but to more closely, more uniformly, more sustainably resonate with higher frequencies, which then, of course, the impact of that is that we hold that higher frequency. We therefore attract more circumstances, opportunities, and timelines. Really, we're on a different timeline that brings those possibilities of that like for like energy experiences into our lives, and also from a collective level up levels the collective by our experience of holding those higher frequencies. So I know that's a lot there, and if people want further information or whatever, you're most welcome to reach out to me. I have done some different information sessions on that are available for free on YouTube, but that's just a little bit of a context so people understand what we're working with there. I'm going to pause now, Anita, and get you to dive in if you want further clarification on that.
So thank you so much for sharing that. I would just say, I guess, being exposed or having that connection with the 3D matrix that you referred to, it could result in us having potentially limiting beliefs that could be affecting our reality as well through our thoughts, etc. With being plugged into this golden diamond light grid of divinity, being plugged into this higher vibrational energy source, tapped into it where it's free of the lower density, we've got greater potential to create or manifest our desired reality or life. So there are a number of benefits for each of us for in this way.
100%. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It really is that reflection of what is the dominant energy that you're holding in each now moment, and the focus on that, and the ability to, I feel like what people experience is just an ease around being able to hold those higher frequencies. So perhaps there's still things going on in your life that are not, it's just not stuff you desire, that you would choose to, that you would prefer to have, but our ability to really hold a higher frequency, and therefore to be able to actually then realize that what we're doing is manifesting better experiences because that's the dominant frequency that we're holding, and we can do that with ease. That's individually one of the best outcomes, I think, for us as humans.
Perfect. So in a way, this connection is really expanding our consciousness and how we connect. Could you explain a bit more about, viewers may have heard about the quantum field and how this relates to consciousness in the grid?
Yeah, so the quantum field holds all of the frequencies. The quantum field is the I guess you'd say is the canvas for all of the frequencies, and the selected frequency packets that are dominant in say, for instance, in the golden diamond light grid of divinity, the frequencies that we are working with there, they are the frequencies of gold, which holds that compassion, which holds that, resonates with a deep love frequency, a unity consciousness frequency. The diamond frequency is a very elevated, effervescent, very extremely high frequency, and of course it's within this light grid of divinity, so all of this is of the divine, our flows of the divine. So that is what I imagine is that is a much more precise, much more concentrated, much more focused, selective form of the frequency within a grid that is held within or on the canvas of the quantum field. Does that sort of make sense at your end, Anita?
Yeah, so you're saying it's really the canvas that's holding all frequencies. At the beginning of this, maybe I should have mentioned that we're assuming here that everything is frequency, everything is energy. That's what we're working with in shifting our frequency, shifting our energy, shifting our consciousness. That's effectively what we're working with. So yeah, like Maia said, if there are questions, we have the opportunity to look at that after. This is really just a dive into this fascinating world. Thank you for answering that, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Could you maybe expand a bit more about the various consciousness technologies that you've worked with, how they serve humanity? I know there's a number of things that you've worked on, perhaps the vibrational force field, working with the space-time continuum, anything that you feel would be interesting or for viewers to understand how you've worked with this technology and how it's served humanity as a whole.
Yeah, so I think just coming back to that point that you just made, which is that exactly the beginning point, the foundational point is really that everything is energy, everything is frequency. And so when we're working with the Elohim to bring through different ways of working, different tools of working with our experience of reality, the tools that we're working with are tools that enable us to work with frequency, to manipulate that frequency, to connect with different, more refined frequencies, to elevate and hold different frequencies. And so the way that people might be thinking, how do you actually do this? And this is all through our own consciousness. So it's through our intention to connect with those frequencies. Often Steve and the Elohim hold that frequency that we might need to be working with in a way that allows us to attune ourselves to it, much as you would attune to a tuning fork. They hold a particular frequency that allows us to expand to a different state, or to experience something, or to connect to the specifics or the nuances of what they regard or they refer to as consciousness technologies. The few that you've mentioned there, Anita, have been very profound. The vibrational force field, which has been utilized in a way that when there is something very traumatic occurring for our collective, there is an upswell, and I'm sure that your community connects into, feels this a lot. There is an upswell of density. There's anxiety, there's fear, there's frustration, there's predominantly fear, I think. And so there is an upswell in what we would regard as a denser, dominant frequency. And in that moment, when there is an upswell, there is a capacity, we have a capacity to connect to this particular consciousness technology, which is called the vibrational force field. And it does what it says on the tin, which is that when we connect into that uplift of density, we have the capability to connect to this technology that will then calm that uprise of density, will bring that down a level or two, so that there's not that peak of negativity, there's not that peak of denser energies, and that subsides, which then of course has the impact of then softening the consequential outcomes. So that's something that we've been working with really at that level. We've also worked with a consciousness technology which has been referred to as the plasmic field. And the plasmic field is really, it's a state of manifestation which is really pre-manifestation. So it's between, if we imagine that everything is frequency being, that everything is an energetic set point, and then when it comes into a manifested experience, that wave and particle is slowed down, and it comes into our reality to be experienced in a physical way. And there's a point between those two states where within this plasmic field there is an ability that we have, an ability to be able to set our intention to connect into a frequency, to project into a frequency, to be able to bring more rapidly into reality that expression in a physical, tangible, manifested form. And that's when we're working within that plasmic field, it is less tangible, it is less concrete, it is less fixed, and yet we still have the capability of being able to work with that and manipulate that in a way. I don't like using that word, but really shift that into the state that we want it to take.
Thank you for touching upon those two, and there are more that you have worked with. And so as you can see, these consciousness technologies have the ability to shift potential timelines for ourselves, for others, all interconnected. So we're not working in silos. It has an potential to affect our own, as well as the timelines of what we experience in everyday reality. And it's working on a more nuanced level, working on the kind of finer, more subtle vibrations. So really, in a way, it's like playing with the frequencies. Just to say, this channeling is, everybody has the ability to do it. It's not just available for a select few. It's just about working with it and having that level of, I guess, guidance, but also just practice. Thank you for that.
If I could just say one other just tiny little sort of clarifying thing, which is that when I work with people to help guide them into being able to channel, or to be able to channel their own soul language or light language in different capacity, either galactic or different related languages. It's most of the work that I do is working with your human, because we can all, as Anita says, we all have this capability and this capacity to be able to channel, but the blockages that most of us experience will be blockages that are connected to us as humans, our safety, our level of comfort, our level of preparedness to step into and believe. And once we overcome those barriers, then it is a natural flow, and it will feel like it's a spontaneous or immediate experience, because it's who we are naturally, and we don't have to learn it in the same capacity that you might need to learn French language or how to make choux pastry or whatever. There's not the same steps.
No, thank you for clarifying that. So, for example, some of the programs you'll be able to learn about how to connect into other aspects of self. So we talk about multi-dimensional galactic aspects, connecting with your broader unified self. So are you able just to keep it quite simple, maybe touch upon the connection with our broader self and, how this inspires the benefits, higher perspective, and etc.?
Yeah, sure. The way that Stephen the Elohim has really introduced the concept of the higher self, they have a preference to use a terminology which is the unified self. And this is because they argue that really that energetic self, our energetic self, isn't actually higher than us. It's not actually a better version of us necessarily. That's what we have heard really through generations, that our higher self is a better version of us. They refer to the higher self as the unified self because it is, or actually, to be very clear, they refer to the higher self as being the energetic self, and the combination of the human and the energetic self is the unified self. It is that more coherent, cohesive self that we have. And so it's not, and this is what I love about this work, and that I love about the perspective that they bring through. It's not, oh, this wicked human, once I beat her into shape, then I will be an enlightened and a wonderful being. It's taking the human that you are and the magnificence of the human that you are, and it's just opening up to the energetic input of ourselves, which is still us, but just at a different non-physicalized level. And the combination, that collaboration, the co-creation that comes through that comfortable connection is really beautiful. And the guidance that you get is not, we'll go down to the corner shop and buy this and then you'll bump into someone who'll give you $1 million. It's a really beautiful, soft, gentle, nudgy sense of intuition that just feels right, and then you follow through, and then there's a beautiful set of beautiful synchronicities and circumstances that unfold. And that's what I love about it, that it's not artificial, it doesn't feel too far away from me, it feels very accessible, and it just feels very non-hierarchical, and I really enjoy that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So it sounds like it's about maybe creating some space in our lives to hear the whispers from our soul, heart, from our unified self. We all have commitments and things, but spending just some time to meditate and connect with this broader self, the pearls of wisdom and different perspective can definitely enhance our lives. So thank you for sharing that. Can you maybe share a bit more about the different types of workshops and courses you offer? I know the Gold program, or anything else in particular you want to mention?
Yeah, sure. At the moment, the core foundational work that we're doing is actually helping people connect into the new earth energetic architecture, the shift of architecture, which is the grid that I've been referring to, the golden diamond light grid of divinity, because that is so fundamental for shifting people's experiences, for, as you alluded to, Anita, for actually helping people confront what are limiting belief systems that we've believed for a very long time that have really held us in place. And so once you're connected into a different energetic grid and you ask your human, given that I am now plugged into a different energetic grid, does that belief that I had, does that still hold? And once you have that little negotiation with yourself, it opens up so much. So that is a really profound piece of work that I'm really thoroughly enjoying introducing people to, connecting people, the power that comes through from being in a different energetic grid, the transformation in people's lives, the shift of the softness that comes through, their openness to different opportunities is really beautiful, and it's an honor to be able to help facilitate that. So I'm really enjoying that. And so we're doing that at the moment on two different levels. So one is for anyone that feels that's something that they're ready for, and it's not for everyone. If you've not done much reflection or much introspection, or you haven't really looked at what are the inputs, what are the things that have influenced the way that you are, the way you've become, the way that you pattern, and what triggers you, then it's probably not quite right for you. But if you've done a lot of that sort of really mulling over and pondering and percolating on a lot of that stuff, this could be the thing that you're ready for to shift your experience of reality, because it really does do that and really shift your ability to manage those different frequencies that you're exposed to. So that's lovely. And I'm also working with a colleague, and we're introducing that to really significant players within corporate and organizational fields. So that change begins to filter down into major organizations. And so if you imagine that a huge organization can have it at its leading point, heart-centered, really compassionate, attuned, connected individuals who are making decisions, putting policies and processes in place, that makes such a significance and has such a ripple effect on other people. So I'm doing both of those. There'll be a channeling course, which will be an introduction to basic connecting to your own intuition and self and multidimensional self, and the light language course for anyone who wants to feel that they can connect to either their soul language or to other sort of galactic languages. So that's a suite of what's on offer at the moment. There is a membership that dear Anita is part of, which is my Cosmic Sparks membership, and that is a beautiful community. There's a monthly sharing, a monthly channeling, energetic transmission, and some energy updates that are part of that. So anyone's very welcome to reach out if any of this resonates with you and you feel that it would be wonderful to connect.
So you're definitely using your kind of powers of telepathy, because that was my next question. Thank you for covering that. And I just wanted to see, what is your key message that you'd like to leave with viewers for today? Just summarize what the key points or key messages are.
Yeah, I think it's that each of us, wherever we're at, we can shift the meter a little bit for ourselves and for the broader collective. So sometimes we can feel like, I'm not good at this, I haven't tuned in, I'm not spiritual enough. And actually, we can do some little things to just open ourselves up, just to believe that we can expand our consciousness a little bit. And it's not a linear process either. That's the other thing. It's a very circuitous process. And our approach to when we assess what progress is from a human perspective, it's so fixed and finite, but actually from a broader soul perspective, it's so much vaster than that. So believe what you're doing is what you should be doing, and believe that you're making a difference in small ways that cumulatively will make a massive difference, and believe that your human is not in opposition to you, and that you don't have to whip her or him to the ground and overcome, but that actually it's about a softening into a listening and a feeling into the energetic self that allows that coming together of who you are.
Brilliant. So it's a real kind of opening of the heart and being open, and a softer approach is valid. Thank you so much for sharing that. So would you be able to end today perhaps with just channeling Stephen or the Elohim, just with anything that they wish to convey?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll just take me a moment to get myself out of the way. And so while I'm doing this, I would just invite your community to really drop into the heart center and set your intention to receive, either energetically or via English language, exactly what would be helpful for you. Because we are working in a multidimensional capacity, which means that even though it will be coming through that are the same, that others will hear, what you receive will be very precisely tailored for you as it comes through. Now, there'll be a little bit of light language, so I'm sure that most of your community has experienced this before, but if you haven't, just to allow yourself to detach from trying to understand it and really connect to it through the heart center. And this is just a little bit of recalibration within our field so that we're all in the space that we're open to receive. Greetings, 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 dear ones. Greetings to you all. So magnificent to connect with so many of you in this format. Some, of course, have had deep connections with us over the time. Others are new to this experience in this particular format. And we welcome all of you. We embrace all of you. And we wish to say to each and every one of you, this is not accidental, dear one. This is not accidental that you find yourself connecting into this expression in this moment, but nor is it accidental that you find yourself within this incarnation at this point of time, in this now moment. This is not accidental. There is a specificity to your experience of this incarnation, meaning there is a reason you are here. There is a reason you are at this very significant point in the evolution of humanity, the shifting of humanity. And it is critical that you resist the temptation to fall into the dire prognosis for your collective, for it is not dire. When you look around your globe in this now moment, you may have a heavy heart, and this is purely reflective of the empathic soul that you are. But we want to say to you, hold tight to that which you believe and that which you know. Hold tight to your values of what is kind and what is compassionate and what is loving, and trust humanity. For humanity is not accurately or adequately expressed in the forms that some of the key leaders present in this now moment. This is not humanity. You know this to be true. You know that when you connect into the kindness of humans, when you have an exchange, a delightful exchange of a smiling of the eyes of another human, of a kindness, of an opening of a door, of a picking of something up, of a giving of something, of a tenderness. This is the expression, the true expression of humanity. And so therefore, how is it possible that true expression of the tenderness of humanity is reflected in the way that you see some of the global leaders touting about at this moment? It is not. And so therefore, if it is not reflective of the volume, of the mass of humanity, of the essence of humanity, then it is merely show. It is merely a parade. It is merely a dance. It is merely a creation. And so hold strongly to the magnificence of the human condition, correction, not the human condition. Many human conditions are not so magnificent. We know you know this. But the magnificence of humanity, of the essence of who you are, of the strength, of the qualities, of the frequencies that you really exhibit. And know that these frequencies will overcome those that you might be observing as being the less preferred frequencies to experience as a human on the earth at this time. And know that your role is to truly hold that vision, hold that perspective, align to that timeline. For it is inevitable, but how you get there can be more or less difficult and problematic depending on how you are able to manage and maintain your own energy, and therefore how you as a collective are able to manage and maintain your energy and that which you experience on the pathway to where you are wanting to head towards. Feeling the essence of hope now, dear ones. We are bringing through a calibration into the frequency of hope. The optimism, the elevation, the broad offering that is held within the frequency of hope. Jibibiamba, Jikele Combaria, Tsukmamba, Diam, Jokaro, Shikaria, Isipia, Roia, Papa, Chakondakia, Andokiela, Chikari, is Papa, Tikalakum. It is with great love for each and every one of you and deep appreciation for this experience you are having, this experience that you are incarnated into, that we leave you now. This is the Elohim, aka Stephen.
Thank you so much, Maia. I would like to express deep gratitude to the Elohim and Stephen for that message. And of course to yourself for channeling. As a channel myself, I know it takes energy to channel. So I really appreciate that. So for the viewers today, if you like this content, please do subscribe, follow all the YouTube, the social media channels. I will share the various links below in the podcast where this will be available. And I will also be having a deeper dive session for the Soul Love Circle community members. So if you'd like to dive deeper into more fantastic content with Maia, please do subscribe and feel free to join that. Thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to meeting again. Thank you, Maia.
Thanks, Anita. It was a pleasure.